And we are live. Hello there. My name is Con, and this is the Geoconservative Files. Tonight, we're going to be talking about, well, I had planned to talk to another YouTuber, Right Ruminations, about his concept of the Parthenon. And I recently a series of videos Right Ruminations did with a friend of mine named Todd Lewis, and the two of them were discussing a broad tent conception of the right that was invented, Right Ruminations, which he called the Parthenon. And I discussed that ideally because I had questions about it, but since he hasn't really appeared yet, I'm going to have to entertain the logo. And don't worry, if he shows up, he'll show up, and we can start having that sort of discussion. Not well, I can just change the type description and have him on some other time. So, I guess a little bit about myself. I'm a Texan. I consider myself to be more leaning towards paleoconservatism. If you don't know, that's more Pat Buchanan and Paul Gottfried, Sam Fran, those types. And I am a Georgist, which means I believe in some of the economic forces of Henry George. I support the elimination of income taxes and want a single tax to replace them. And I also believe that land ownership, private land ownership, is part of the reason mass immigration is because the immigrants crowd out the housing market, and this demands rent prices. It's impossible to live in these big cities, and if we had a more be so much of a problem. In California, California probably the one state that could definitely use a Georgist governor. Like I mean, cut all the taxes and raised up a tax on land rents, sort of, and then started funding some programs to then California would turn itself around, I think. But it's just Caligula need California. Well, I guess I guess eventually it would. They will. I mean, but isn't California already Caligulas? I mean, it's they are. Oh, my connection is. How can I fix my connection then? Can I fix? Hello. Anyways, uh, I'll let I'll I'll let Calm answer that. In the meantime, uh, what I can I can discuss what I want to do with this. I want to actually meet and discuss some important political ideas. Some of these right around here, sort of connect everybody together, because I think that there needs a sort of a better net wing front right wingers in order to resist some of the left censorship, because part of to demoralize opposition through this constant grind, this constant grind of demonetizing our videos, isolating us, picking up one by one. You know, these strategies, this psychological warfare, is they want to be easy to write off. And I think if we were to sort of, I mean, you could say unionize. If we were to unionize in a big way, if we were to communicate with each other more effectively, on just tear the rug from out under us, then we would be able to be a lot more productive in what we're trying to do, which is fight the left, create alternatives to left-wing propaganda. And I want to reach out to a lot of the smaller right-wing YouTubers, because, you know, there's a lot of up-and-coming right-wingers that are just, I can imagine that coming out of this, the whole TPUSA Nick Fuentes debacle, there would be a lot of young right-wing intelligent people who, you know, become dissatisfied with social media. And I think those people need leaders, leaders of the community, and that's why I want to be there for them. You know. What else? Oh yes, and one of the other things that I've been thinking about using this channel with, besides my live stream videos where I talk to others, is I want to make response videos to leftists on YouTube, specifically the kind of bread tube types. You know, ContraPoints is the most popular of them, but there are others like Philosophy Tube and Thought Slime, Non-Compete, Peter Coffin. These people tend to thrive on YouTube. You know, I mean, their sub count, it's a healthy growth, but it looks mostly astroturfed. But boy, do they have the Patreon dollars. I mean, most of the Patreon accounts are big enough to where they can just live off their YouTube channels. And if you've ever seen their videos, they are mediocre at best, really. Now, in an ideal world, right-wingers and left-wingers would be talking to on, you know, exchanging ideas back and forth, and trying to understand, you know, trying to move forward, because that's how dialogue works. We pit ideas with each other, each other, move forward with ideas to better develop theory. You know, but the problem was that the left wing side of YouTube does not want to talk to right wingers. In their mind, that we're all a bunch of bad faith actors, that we're all a bunch of grifters, and that the last part is true. We are basically nobodies to compare of a lot of the institutional power. They have astroturfing. They have all of this kind of stuff. Calm Ander. Cutting in and out. I don't know if you can see anything else is taking up bandwidth. I can. I mean, I don't have anything out except like a Microsoft Word. Yes. Other than that, I don't have. Maybe my computer's. Hold on, let me just. Maybe this. All right, how's that? Am I getting better? I exit out at a few things. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. How's that? Is that better? Am I coming in and out now? Am I coming in and out now, guys? Let me just type this. Gosh, this is kind of embarrassing. It might be. All right. Well, how much do you think I should how much do you think I should go back and repeat? Because yeah. So BreadTube. Yeah, BreadTube is kind of an interesting phenomenon because they aren't entirely astroturfed, although somebody big is paying for their Patreons. It's and it's I mean they have a healthy growth, uh, even if they don't get as many views and likes as some right wing channels of a similar size. And I think RedTube thrives on a sort of mediocrity of sorts. They seem to have this. I mean, some of their ideas are interesting. The problem is they don't know how to engage with their opposition. They don't know how to engage with someone who is opposed to them. I mean, I know this from watching a lot of their videos. Some of them will just the response video to what they're going to be doing is going to be basically me trying to refute their straw man arguments for the right, and I guess a lot of the and that will be. I mean, maybe that will get old, but but I do think that I can find a way to make something like that exciting. Um, I I was thinking that maybe I could be sort of a straight man to some of their actions. I could be the reaction straight man while they are basically putting on a Captain Planet-esque puppet show, casting the right wing as the villains. And I can just point out, hey guys, you're basically what is this? Is this PBS? Is this Sesame Street? Are you who's your audience here? I mean, not grown adults, that's for sure. Although maybe considering some of these people watch Steven Universe, maybe they are kind of childlike inside. I mean, not that I blame them. I used to be a total weeb before I actually realized that most of the stuff was garbage. It's kind of very like I don't know, man. I want to actually get to understand them. I don't want to just keep bashing them. You know, I want to be able to understand BreadTube, be able to know why they do what they do. Why are they on YouTube? Why are they making videos the way they are making videos? Oh, and Steven. Yeah, Steven Universe, man. Uh um Rebecca, I mean, if you've watched E semicolon R's video on Steven Universe, as someone who has actually watched like clips of it on YouTube, you know, I don't invest. I when it comes to these kinds of things, what I like to do is just go on YouTube and watch highlights of it to know, you know, so I don't have to sit and watch the whole thing. I could just look at what are considered the best parts of the show. And uh yeah, but E semicolon R, who had his video unfairly, who's been unfairly bashed as this kind of neo-Nazi, alt-righter, whatever they're coming up with the name. He was his video was basically on the money. You know, it is a mediocre show, and a lot of the shows that they have are mediocre. And not only are they mediocre, they're very. I mean, they're very childish, and yet they also hint at sexual themes because Steven Universe is their version of fusion. Fusion in Steven Universe is supposed to be it's supposed to represent sex, and that gets into just all kinds of weird when Steven is basically fusing with his alien stepmom, the alien lesbian stepmoms, fusing with this girl his age, and they're both 14, and fusing with his dad. Oh, let's see. Eternal Rhodesian, what do you think of the situation with TP USA and the Groypers? Here's the thing. I kind of like Nick Fuentes. I mean, I used to think he was more puerile. I used to think he was kind of iffy because, you know, I mean, I'm not going to. I mean, not that he's entirely wrong about e-girls, but when you're starting a campaign to drive e-girls off the internet and stuff, it's like, man, you got a problem. And that kind of symbolizes what is a lot of the problem with some of these internet movements. They get caught up in the meme and they start going off into who knows where and doing unproductive things. But this is actually very interesting. It makes good entertainment, first of all. And that's always what you want to be on YouTube, entertaining. And most of the entertainment works because Turning Point USA is just so bad. I mean, I knew they were bad like since the beginning of 2019. In fact, I knew they were bad since I was in college. Back when I was in college, I joined their movement briefly, and you know, my first session, my first meeting, it was like some old dude coming up there and talking about free market alternatives to green energy, and I'm like, what is this? Is this even relevant to me? How is this relevant to me? And so I just left without a second thought. Maybe that a branch of TPUSA at Texas A&M was just kind of unproductive, but it's kind of but Nick Fuentes with this TPUSA thing, do I think he'll get anything productive done? That's an maybe. I mean, he'll definitely discredit Charlie Kirk in the eyes of young conservatives, which is very good. We want to discredit mainstream conservatives in the eyes of younger conservatives, because then they'll join the dissident right. Or at the very least, they'll pressure mainstream right to become more right wing and not just, a joke. But this kind of these kind of democratic two-party politics that goes on in the right in America, I think it's kind of futile. I don't think Nick Fuentes is going to actually become a movement and take over the Republican Party and push all the things he's going to be wanting to push. I don't think. I mean, he doesn't have the institutional power. He's one guy. He's basically it'd be like if Steven Crowder was trying to run the entire conservative establishment. You know what I mean? It's like Nick Fuentes is smart, but he's not. But he's not like the big ideas guy. He doesn't have all this. He doesn't have the donors, and he doesn't have the trustworthiness to earn donors. He's not. What's going to happen is Charlie Kirk, TPUSA, they're going to get discredited, and then the Republican donors will basically find like a replacement for Charlie Kirk, who believes all the same things Charlie Kirk did, and the cycle will go on as if nothing had happened. But what will have changed was a lot of disillusioned right wingers that are young and energetic. But those people need leaders, and we need organization and networking in order to build up these young people into leaders and help create the dissident right. Because I think right now everything's up in the air. Anything could happen. That's not really a good thing to me. I mean, it fills us with hope, but it also is not the best thing. Kind of a follow-up. Okay, another one from Eternal Rhodesian. What do you think of Trivial Tom and the neo-absolutist? Where are they? I'm just saying. Trivial Tom got chased off the internet by who knows what. I haven't even heard of. I haven't even heard of Dylan. Nick Land, has he written anything recently? I mean, I'm happy to form. I mean, I might be like a limited government conservative, but I'm happy to form like a coalition with neo-absolutists because we have the same priorities in mind. We have the same goals in mind. We see the same things. We know what the nature of the game, even if our end goals are slightly different. The question we also share a common enemy. So I'm willing to discuss neo-absolutist ideas, and who knows, maybe one of these days they'll convince me to join their team. I don't know how they'll be able to address some of my problems with neo-absolutism, but that's for their theoreticians. But all I can say is, where are they? Where is? Oh, Dylan is Trudell Tom. Okay, so Dylan got kicked off the internet. Yeah. Oh, Nick is not Nick Land. It's Nick Fuentes. Ah, okay, that makes more sense. Yeah. I mean, I really want Trudell Tom to come back. His content was pretty good. I'd say I really liked his pretty much all of his videos. Really, especially his video takedowns of libertarianism. So now I'm going to get to like Lighty Whitey's thing. If you think Steven Universe is bad, don't touch Ruby. Well, too late, my friend. I already touched Ruby. It is boring. I will say it's not as. I will say it's, you know, the what I can say with Ruby is, unlike Steven Universe, it does have some heart to it. Like, it was like something that was made by Monty as like his passion project, and it was cliche as all get out. You know, it was very cliche. Don't get me wrong. It had the whole anime high school vibe, anime supernatural high school vibe, complete with all the cliches you can imagine. Because, you know, pretty much every light novel adaptation created by anime is basically ripping off of this one other show called Maharobi, which is in turn ripping off Harry Potter. That's what started this, the whole anime high school thing. Harry Potter. Although, unlike Harry Potter, the anime high school in anime does kind of, they all live at the school, the supernatural school. So there's not like this immersion breaking going back home after the school ends. So that you can just be in wish fulfillment world all the time. Ruby went. I mean, Ruby got kind of interesting in season 3 because they were taking a dark turn, and they had the anime high school setting destroyed by the villains who won. The villains won in that season and destroyed the anime high school setting. But after that, it kind of went downhill because the writing was all over the place, and they split the narrative into the 4 characters. The fellowship of the 4 characters was broken, and they all went their separate directions, and they each had their own plot points, and it was very chaotic. They didn't organize the writing well. And then when they all came back together again, it was very underwhelming. And the result was, yeah, it kind of, and now I'm just lost all interest in it. I don't care what happens next. I don't care that Ruby now has a lesbian butch haircut. Yeah, I don't care that, you know, one of their writing. Yeah, I mean, seasons one, the early seasons were cliche. The later seasons didn't know what the heck they were doing. So the writing in Ruby is just terrible. What attracted me to Ruby in the first place, what attracted me to Ruby in the first place was that it was kind of like this. It had the feel of an indie passion project, you know, unlike Steven Universe, which is corporate schlock, created by like this weirdo perverts. Ruby came off as like this indie passion project, and then but then they got big, and then they started doing things, and the bad writing from the earlier seasons didn't get better at all. So I just lost interest. I stopped caring. And, you know, what keeps the show going is the fans. You know, the Ruby fandom, you know, comes up with like all these ships, and then the creators of the show, they see what the fans are doing, and they react by putting the stuff putting stuff fans do into the show, and then the fans are like, oh my gosh, look, there's they put my ship name into the show. Oh my gosh. And my two favorite characters are holding hands. Blake X Yang Wu. You know, it is basically pandering. Any word from Right Ruminations? I have not heard a word from Right Ruminations, unfortunately. But don't worry, I'll be on here for another half hour until he shows up. And if he doesn't show up, then I'll whatever, man, whatever. This isn't a bad. Oh, they brought, but yeah, I saw that in the trailer. Yeah, and I'm like, well, okay, Robot Girl, fine. I can understand bring back Robot Girl from. I mean, to their credit, they're not bringing back the what's her face, the other redhead that died that season. Blake X Wang is what the show will never be, so as long as the gay sells. The gay sells, yes. The lesbian gay sells. That is, you know, a lot of shows with bad writing, you'll find they cover up the bad writing by inserting comedy, sex, and violence into it. In comedy, sex, and violence to cover up the writing, because all three of those things give you a dopamine hit every time you witness them. And so, you know, if you're high, then you don't really care what you're watching because you're high, you know. And it's the same thing applies to dopamine hits. You know, if you're high on the dopamine, if you're seeing the Michael Bay explosions and the lesbian hand holding and the quirky millennial dialogue, haha, then you're basically high. And you know, maybe those dumb things are good for popcorn fuel, but they're not really substantive. And this is kind of why, you know, Todd Lewis and I discuss a lot of things on Discord. And one of the things he thinks is we should bring back something like the Hays Code, because that would act as quality control for a lot of these really bad shows. You know, Game of Thrones would be, you know, honestly, I think Game of Thrones or something like it would be way better if we still had something like the Hays Code implemented, because then they wouldn't be able to cover up the bad writing with blood, like with blood and sex and stuff. Sargon needs more dopamine. Nope, he does not. He does not. And the reason for that is, well, he does not. That's all I'll say about Sargon. Staying on right-wing topics, then, where would you place Julius Evola? People call him the most right-wing philosopher to have existed. People say that about Maestra. Would you say he's a reactionary or ... Julius Evola. I confess to you that I have not read Evola. Now, what I've heard of Evola is that he's a traditionalist in the Guinan kind of traditionalist, and I've seen it. It's kind of like, if I can put in words, and this might sound kind of weird, it's like New Age, but for hardline reactionaries. You know what I mean? It's sort of, it has this, or maybe New Age for men. That might be a better one. New Age for men, because it's like you're taking this idea of this kind of spirituality and esoteric stuff and esoteric woo, and you're trying to reclaim a sort of warrior or aristocratic mentality that predates Socrates. And that is kind of the Julius Evola pagan project, is a reverse of Socrates. It was Socrates that really brought this idea of reason and rationality and kind of reason, rationality, and this kind of that kind of mode of thought to the West. There's a reason why the people of Athens killed Socrates, had him put to death, because his ideas were dangerous to the existing order. Of course, the pagan society of Athens had been degenerated by their egalitarian political system, but that did not change the fact that Socrates was a revolutionary in his time. And what I see in someone like Julius Evola is he's kind of this guy who wants to reclaim the warrior aristocracy. Although I might be reading him wrong. I haven't read him myself. I can only tell you what I've heard about him. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Don't. I haven't read every philosopher. Right now, I'm actually trying to read some left-wing philosophers like G.A. Cohen. G.A. Cohen is actually pretty interesting because he is a Marxist that whose career is basically dedicated to criticizing other egalitarians. Extreme. He is probably the most extreme egalitarian you could possibly be, but he does it with a lot of rigor, as you would expect from an academic. And one of the book I'm looking at right now is called "If You're an Egalitarian, How Come You're So Rich?" And it's mainly a Marxist critique of John Rawls, but he does make a few good points about modern bread tubers, because none of these people, even though they are anti-capitalist, they're supposedly against consumerism and against inequality and for privileging people. In reality, these people are some of the most privileged people in society. I mean, first of all, they get to make money and make a living off of. I prefer classic leftists. So yeah, I do too. But Cohen is pretty good. Anyway, these bread tubers, they have so many privileges. First of all, they get to earn a living off of a lot of them get to earn a living off of just making mediocre videos. Second of all, a lot of them they're pretty much all invariably this kind of cushy upper middle class East Coast twat, and they're kind of this, oh, I'm such in an earlier society, they'd be like this they'd be this do nothing rich stereotype. But because we live in clown world, they are the Marxist revolutionaries. Go figure. And they're all white, let's just say. And not only that, they're all white men, which is why most of them are self-identify as non-binary or trans, because they're trying to get more oppression brownie points. But Cohen points out that this is actually and he attributes this to John Rawls, but I think this is a problem with the modern left in general. It's that their talk about equality and, you know, atoning for your privilege, all that talk does not apply, does not have a personal moral ethic. It's not it doesn't give them anything they're obligated to do. It's basically an expression. It's basically two things at once. First, it gives them a rhetorical angle to attack their opponents. I mean, if they don't like somebody, they can just accuse them of not being an egalitarian, which is what they do every time they call someone a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. You know, they're basically saying you're not like me. And second, they see these inequalities. They think that having like an egalitarian political philosophy justifies being personally a morally mediocre person, you know, kind of an amoral person, you know, because they don't have to live by their own standards, because their own standards do not include personal moral responsibility. Their standards are entirely political. It's not just the personal is the political, it's the political has replaced the personal in this case. Which is why ContraPoints, who rails against capitalism, is probably the most consumerist person you could possibly be. I mean, how many costumes, ContraPoints? How many costumes will you donate to poor black kids in inner cities? I'm sure they'd love to. I'm sure ContraPoints could create like a live show and then donate the proceedings to inner city black youths so that they can so that they could possibly succeed in life, you know. Race realism aside. I'm cheap. No, seriously, it's like they don't have that kind of personal. If they do, it's a very thin sense of it. You know, their moral ethic could basically be boiled down to don't be a jerk to leftists, basically. Don't be a jerk to one of the protected classes on the left. And that is their only BreadTube would never go anywhere near the basketball American ghettos. Well, I mean, I suspect that, yeah, I mean, they're kind of like they're kind of like their counterparts in the media in some respect. I mean, Don Lemon lives in the most lily white neighborhood possible. I mean, they know on some level that what's going on in these inner cities. The problem is they don't see it as their personal moral obligation. Like, if I were like an egalitarian who was trying to fight white privilege, I'd be concerned with how much with making a living so that I could donate my income to inner city youths, or trying to create these foundations to help out black people and mentally ill people in inner cities, trying to do that. But instead, what are they doing? They're complaining about Donald Trump, Jordan Peterson on YouTube. You know, and they are attacking the Nazis. A newsflash: the biggest threat to African Americans is not Nazis, it's other African Americans. The biggest threat to African Americans is not, you know, people on the internet using the N-word. It's gang violence. It's gang violence. It's drugs. It's you know, the lack of, it's the failure of public education. It's all these different factors. It's also, and more than that, it's also a kind of spiritual defeat too. I mean, I guess a lot of you guys are probably kind of the pro-white guys, and I kind of am that too. But if you put yourself into perspective of a black person, imagine that you were told that westernization, all that Western civilization, those things that make it great, were in fact sources of slavery. That the reason you were impoverished and downtrodden was because your people had been enslaved by, you know, the white man. I mean, that kind of degradation would it's the same kind of spiritual degradation that you would find in any kind of a conquered peoples, and I don't think it's going to go away if you know, or rather when whites become a minority. I think they're going to carry that burden with them afterwards, and it'll negatively affect their actions later, which is kind of why we don't want mass migration. Essentially, we do not want people like that to get into power on a larger scale. I mean, they already are in power, but it's like they're only in power because the left sees them as good proxy warriors. You know, that's how I see it. It's like, you know, these kinds of white and Jewish leftists, they're the ones who have the money, and then they basically use black people as kind of these proxy warriors. And you know, the more upper class black people kind of do the same, kind of go along with the program in order to just ride the cash cow, milk the cash cow, so to speak. You know, it's I mean, think about it this way: if you like imagine like if you look at the average black person, that you see the Democrat Party saying, you know, we're going to give your single mother free money for no reason. We're going to lock up anybody who we're going to lock up any white person who says anything bad about you, because that's hate speech, and we're going to let you off easy for any crimes you've committed. And you know, the average black, you know, if they are, if you're a rational human being in that situation, you'd have to be an idiot to pass up a deal like that. You'd be thinking, oh, these people are suckers, you know. That is my view of why Democrats pretty much have, you know, blacks and other racial minorities in the bag. They can just they can offer them free welfare. They can offer them hate speech laws to shut down anybody who hurts their feelings. Yeah, that's kind of my take on it. But I'm just kind of rambling at this point. Anything else? Um, um, anything from the chat? Seems to be kind of quiet here. I will have to say, if Right Ruminations does not show up within the next, I don't know, half hour or so, then then I'll just kind of end the stream there. But you know, I am honored that there are as many people as there are here at this tiny channel. It kind of warms my heart. I'm trying my best to entertain you guys. How are you? Are you entertained yet? Are you entertained by my boomer ranting? No? Um, say, would any of you guys like to kind of look at, kind of react to like a video or something? Uh, uh, press F if you want to see like this, or see me react to some video live. We've got plenty of time. Oh, suddenly I got a whole lot of people here. Are you entertained? Reactionary. Oh god. Skellington, you are one of my favorite people on Discord. Uh so yeah. All right. So I'll have to find one. I have a list of BreadTube videos that I'd like to take a look at. I have it because I have a list of BreadTube videos I want to make actual response videos to. Let's, but they're all kind of long. I can take a look at the most, at the smallest one. Like, how about one of the shorter ones? This one is like a, how about like a 12? Let me actually, let me try screen sharing here. Let's see. Best of. Let's see. Boom. Chrome tab. There. Share. All right. How's this? See this? Is this good? Am I breaking up with you? Is my bandwidth bad because I turned on YouTube? Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it doesn't. You know, kind of mess up on me, because the internet in my house is not. The internet at this house is not great. You know. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is that good, Lighty Whitey? Is that good? All right, here. You know, hopefully one of these days I'm going to get a good mic and find a way to work with my crappy bandwidth. I mean, those are the two big problems. You know, besides my technological issues, but I've handled most of the technology, and this kind of website, StreamYard, is really good. I will say, I really like this. It's very intuitive, unlike the YouTube stuff. The StreamYard is very good. So let me just kind of click this. This it, is that good? Can you hear that? Yeah, it's ad. Okay, so whatever kind of, let's just downgrade it to 4083 just in case. You know, hmm, downvote. Why not? Yeah, I'm kind of petty like that sometimes. But so I watched a bit of this. My mic doesn't sound bad. Well, I'm using my laptop's mic, and my laptop is a good laptop, but I'd prefer to get an actual microphone, because that is where it's at. And I'd also like to get some good headphones too, because I have these old Beats headphones, but they're not really the best. I'm not good with taking care of my headphones. I have this curse where every head piece of headphones that I've ever had, they break after a year. And I've been told that I'm not the most careful with them, but anyway, tell me if you can hear this. Well, at least he has good taste in music, actually. Uh, Pseudo analyst says you can't hear it. You can't hear it. Are you sure? Let me check this settings. Let's see. I don't know how to work with the oh no, sorry. Can you can't hear this. Okay. Let's can you hear that? Can you hear the polka music? Could you hear the polka music from Thought Slime's video? Because I'd like to know whether or not very well. Okay. Well, this the boomer is showing. My inner boomer is showing because I've come across this and I I can't do anything. I mean, how can I do anything about it? I mean, let's see. Do you know how do any of you know how to increase the volume on? I have it on max volume for my laptop. Downloading some RAM. What is RAM and how do you download that? I am not kidding. I don't know. Okay, let me just see. Can I download RAM quickly? Oh god. Let's see. RAM. How do you download more RAM? Uh, so the amount of 4 GB RAM. Should I download 4 GB RAM? I have a feeling that this might be a meme, but I don't know. I am kind of tech incompetent, but maybe that'll be a part of the humor of this show. I am eternally. It's not just that I'm a boomer; it's that I literally am tech illiterate. I don't. The part of what's it's a scam. Okay, all right. Well, you can. It's you. I guys, are you entertained yet? It's hardware. Okay, okay. Gosh, I'm not a boomer. I make boomers look tech literate by comparison. I am a Zoomer that is just bad at technology. You know, I'm good with books. I prefer books to computers, but because I'm just, ugh, you know, it's kind of frustrating how I don't know what to do about this. Maybe we should just listen to what he says. Maybe I could. I don't know what to do about this. Let's see. How do you get? Um, let's see. How do you get this dumb phone? Um, how do you get sound on screen recording? Here we go. In live stream. All right. So, okay. I'd like the thing is, I'd like to be able to do this. I'd like to be able to maybe if I put it. Hold on a second. Maybe if I do this, mute myself first, and then play the video. Tell me if you can hear it. Can you hear me? Can you hear the video? Could you hear the video? I mean, uh, when I had my thing muted. Could you hear the video when I had my mic muted? Let me see. You couldn't even hear the video. Okay, so it's connected to my mic somehow. I know it's connected to my mic somehow. Uh, and I'm trying to do something about it. I maybe I should just stop while I'm ahead. I guess it's like you know, I mean, I wish I could watch this video because this video is like it's the perfect example of not knowing why somebody else said something. Um, why somebody would be against something like political. Like he goes over like political correct the Wikipedia definition of political correctness. Um, and look into OBS. I will actually. So StreamYard is not as good as OBS when it comes to these things. Right. All right. Maybe it. Looking around in StreamYard, it doesn't have any desktop audio. Open Broadcaster software. Interesting. Is that another meme again? Broadcaster audio. OBS video recording something. I'll have to keep. I'll keep that in mind. I'll just I'll. I wish I could have shown you that video. That would have been a more interesting first episode. Really, because the the video basically. I haven't finished watching the video yet because but the video basically starts off with Thought Slime defining political correctness, just reading what it says on the Wikipedia entry and going, so what's wrong with political correctness? It sounds like a good thing. I mean, the Wikipedia entry says that it's supposed to protect minorities from hateful language. That sounds like a great thing. Nothing could go wrong with that. I don't know. Maybe he confronts the right wing arguments later, but I kind of doubt that. I kind of doubt that he actually does confront the actual critiques of political correctness, which is basically that it's essentially a form of modern day blasphemy laws. It's essentially used as basically using the offense of so-called minority groups as a sort of a proxy for shutting down dissent from progressivism. It's not just dissent from progressivism; it's dissent from whatever person who's doing the enforcing version of progressivism. Like if a progressive decides and this is something I'm going to have to put into my response video to Thought Slime. If a progressive decided that the word capitalist was like a euphemism for Jew, which is it could happen, it could happen. If they decided that bankers or capitalists was like a euphemism for Jew, then they could attack Thought Slime anytime he made like an anti-capitalist video, if they decided that it would be politically convenient for them to do so. Of course, Thought Slime sits there nice and easy because it's very convenient for the establishment to have someone like Thought Slime. It's very convenient for the sort of people who run YouTube to have a Thought Slime there, because it helps fuel their narrative that there are these brave left wingers fighting the reactionaries on YouTube, de-radicalizing young men, as it were. ContraPoints is pretty much the pinnacle of this. I mean, how can you call you can't really call yourself a revolutionary if you're being funded by the state. That's what I'm saying. That's what I would say is a red flag. When you're being funded by the state or by some state institutions, then it's very doubtful that you are actually a radical, because what that tells me it doesn't tell me. And now this isn't to impugn bad motives on ContraPoints, because ContraPoints could earnestly be this wide-eyed revolutionary that wants to overthrow capitalism. I mean, there's reason to doubt that, but they could, in all fairness, be that wide-eyed revolutionary. But if you're going on to like state, like public broadcast, if you're being shilled for by public broadcasting and by The Economist, then that tells me that even if you think that you are this wide-eyed revolutionary, if you earnestly believe that, then the establishment is on your side, essentially. The establishment would not be funding ContraPoints if ContraPoints was a real threat to the institutions in question. He's always been claimed to be a liberal. Well, at least at least he's honest. Yeah, at least he's honest. Yeah, I mean, I remember ContraPoint. I guess ContraPoints as a liberal is allowed to make sort of these critiques of consumerism. I know I have my critiques of when ContraPoints is going after people for spending millions of dollars on gold pizzas. That's it. I mean, it's hard to argue against it. yeah, there was a ContraPoints video in which he he critique he demonstrated sort of this decadence of modern society by looking at how there were these people who went to there's a special pizza shop where you can pay thousands of dollars to get a pizza with like gold sequins on it. Now, why you would do that is beyond me, but maybe I'm just it's not my tastes. Maybe it's not my tastes. But ContraPoint sees something wrong with it, and I think there might be something wrong with it, in that if you're spending thousands of dollars on gold sequence pizzas, that's thousands of dollars you're not spending on other things that are more important to your life. You know, but ContraPoints shouldn't be talking, considering they are probably the most consumerist person out there. Like I mentioned earlier, how many costumes? How many costumes, Mr. Wynn? How many costumes? Uh, he got bullied. Yeah, he got bullied off Twitter. This is actually kind of interesting, and it kind of goes into sort of my backstory too. You see, I used to be a progressive, and my thing with the progressive movement, every person within the, I'm kind of, I have the tism, I have the autism, the tism, as V. Monroe would say, and so likewise, when I was when I was a teenager, I was progressive. I read this blog called The Transgender Catholic. I was obsessed with all the 64 genders and stuff, and I just thought that we were the most fascinating thing out there. It was just so cool that there were all these genders. Who knew? Who knew? Right? It was I had that kind of wide-eyed thrill of it, as if it was something. In hindsight, it was kind of similar to a nerd geeking out about Star Wars. Only it was me geeking out about 64 genders. if that makes sense. But I know that a lot of people would probably are probably into the 64 genders simply for that reason. And in some of those people, I think they get their validation from it. It becomes them. They're kind of like the loony fans of Rick and Morty. They're like the loony fans of Steven Universe. They get their validation from something that's kind of that's very artificial, a very artificial sort of identity. And if you poke at it in any way, they get very upset with you. And especially because it's a fragile thing. And so when ContraPoints starts even hinting at questioning non-binary, when he starts hinting at questioning my non-binary, he gets taken off of Twitter. He gets, or at least he has to run away from Twitter, because there are all these younger transgender revolutionaries. So, excuse me, non-binary revolutionaries that are swarming him, because in honesty, it is kind of sad for a lot of these people, because a lot of these people do have these kinds of mental issues. They're not just like losers on the internet. They have mental issues. This is their way of coping with it. But you cannot make a political movement off of neuroses. You can't make a political movement off of your political movement can't be your therapy group too. You know, that's not healthy. That is not healthy, and that's what I see every time. Every time I look at some of these people, it's like, you know, I wish that I wish God would come and help them out, you know, because they do need to have their minds healed, you know. And of course, if you ever talk about this, they're going, oh, conversion therapy, oh. That's just them shouting words that they don't really understand what they mean. That is, you know, and I think the main thing is, don't, you know, as cringy as some of these transgenders and non-binaries are, at the end of the day, they are people like us, and they are very fragile people, and they've been harmed by modernity. They have lost their way, and I think in a lot of ways we can, if we can become a larger cultural voice, we can give them an alternative to the hug box that they have. We can get and help them move on in their life. I think the real enemies are those who are using these people to fuel whatever ideological agenda they have. You know, the people who are doing this, either it's they're using these people as proxy warriors very cynically, either because they have some monetary or, you know, monetary thing that they can gain, monetary reward they could gain from this, or because they have an ideological motivation to tear down what's left of the West at this point. Hinting at its, that's the, yeah, that's actually kind of interesting, because ContraPoints didn't even question non-binary. He just said, it's not my thing, you know, but it's not my thing is not good enough. This is why I'm not a libertarian anymore, at least not anymore, because not my thing is no longer an acceptable answer. Not if once you say, oh, you're free to do what you want, it's just not my thing, you've already surrendered, and once you give an inch, they'll take a mile. It's very, which is why libertarianism is probably the most boring position you could have in the culture war, like the straight up beltway libertarian. Yawn, snooze. Yeah. Oh yeah. Your answer to everything is, well, if it's between two consenting adults, then there's no it's none of my business. If it's not harming anybody, then it's none of my business. You know, that is not that that is just, if your answer to all of the culture, the serious cultural questions in the culture war is like that, then you're not interesting, you're boring, get out, just go back to studying economics or something. I mean, this isn't all, that's not all libertarians, mind you. There are libertarians that don't whose answer to everything is not just, oh, two consenting adults, then it's none of my business. Actually, you live in a society. Yeah, we live in a society, guys, and you know what and there's no such thing as an entirely self-regarding act. You know, if it were like, if let's take homosexuality for instance. You know, and if we were told, I was told my entire life that, you know, if somebody wanted to do something about homosexuality, make it illegal or not legalize their marriage or oppose some gay agenda or what have you, that's intervening with the private choices of citizens. I mean, you know, you don't want them to police your bedroom, right? You know, that's just it. So conservatives were basically told, and first by the left, then by the libertarians, and then by their own establishment figures, that, you know, if you have, why do you want the government to police the bedroom? Why do you want the government to police the bedroom? You know, don't you know, two consenting adults? But now it's public. This isn't about, this was because it was never about what you did in the bedroom. The government, unless you have like a totalitarian surveillance state, there's no way the government can police what you do in the bedroom of your own home. What what this was always about was whether or not we should have homosexuality be normative in society at large. Whether we should, what should the public's attitude towards these people who have these sexual fetishes be? That is what it was always about. It wasn't about policing in policing people's bedroom. It was about the act itself. And the left, you notice as soon as Obergefell, I think it was Obergefell. It was starting with an O, but it's the, I can look that up. I can look that up. Obergefell, that's it. Obergefell, 2015. Obergefell. Yeah, there. As soon as Obergefell dropped, it made same-sex "quote unquote" marriage the law of the land. They did not stop. They just kept going. They just kept going because you gave them you gave them a mile. You didn't give them an inch. You gave them a mile. So they're going to take 2 miles. They're going to take as many miles as you'll let them. And we're seeing that play out in modern day clown world. Desmond is amazing. The drag queen story hour, which, by the way, according to David French, is one of the blessings of liberty. Thank you, founding fathers. I kid. No, the founding Thomas Jefferson's. By the way, Thomas Jefferson's his position on homosexuals is that they should be castrated. That was the classical liberal position on homosexuality vis-a-vis the 18th century. You know, I wouldn't have a problem with liberals if they were like Thomas Jefferson. You know what I mean? Anyway, that is kind of it, but that's kind of the entire problem with this line of thought. There's actually an interesting video made by Philosophy Tube called Transphobia and Analysis. And, you know, it's your basic bread tube straw man video, but it has this, but there's this one part where he attacks people who basically go, well, it's not my preference, but you can do that if you want. You know, you could be gay if you want. You can be transgender if you want. He attacks that position as being transphobic. And says that that's completely unacceptable. It's immoral to have that position because you have to embrace what the left is doing. You have to embrace the latest fashions of the left. So okay, we're nearing the end of the live stream, and I've boomer ranted enough. Is anybody still kind of listening? Is anybody still here? You know, he's, are you entertained yet? Yeah, I'd like to see some you know, see some kind of oh, sorry, I kind of, yeah, actually the am intertwined. Yes. This is the comment of the day, fitting for a first episode. Thank you, Skellington. You are the comment of the day. By the way, you know, I love StreamYard. You can do that. You know, you can put like the comments on the screen. It's incredible, really. Boop. Yeah. So the so yeah, do any of you have any questions before I close out this live stream? Because it's become apparent that um, you know, he's not going to he's not going to be coming today, which is unfortunate because I like Right Ruminations. I think he's a great guy. You should really check out his channel on YouTube, and you should also check out Praise the Follies channel. I have them in my if you click on my channel link, I have them under my friends list. You know, the friends on the side. So any thoughts, any questions before I close out? Talk about being a progressive. Um, talk about being a progressive. What was what you want me to share my life journey? Sorry, my political journey. I mean, it's kind of interesting, really. Yes. Is anybody up for that? It's I'll keep it as short as I can. Red pill stories. Oh, you'll love this one. This is a doozy because I had like it. I had I was I had 3 doses of red pill and then in kind of a blue pill and then I had a real and then I started really getting red pill. You know what I mean? Okay, here this is the story. All right. So I had so when I started out, I was kind of myopic. Being I was entirely focused on school throughout most of most of my life. I wanted to be some kind of scientist, and you know, and I was kind of this kind of a big reader. I liked reading a lot, and I liked to write. You know, I wrote fan fiction stuff, and the I came across progressive ideas that back then, and they looked interesting to me because you know how many like I could create. How would like a non-binary character be written? Of course, this was back then. I didn't realize that all of these different identity and made up identities were just like a sad cry for help. But this was back then when I thought that non-binary actually meant something. You know, I thought that it actually was something solid, is something real, a real tangible identity. And you know, and I decided I self-identified as asexual, like most autists, and I started consuming a lot of reading some progressive stuff on Tumblr and some progressive blogs and writing fan fiction stuff, kind of cringe. Um, and what kind of change? What the scales that fell from my eyes the first time was it was there was a there was a fanfic that a fan fiction author. I'm not going to give her name that I was friends with at the time. I think she was from Brazil or something. I don't know. I don't know. It was a long time ago. I'm not friends with this person anymore, so don't harass her or anything. She probably doesn't know who I am, but I was friends with that person at the time, and she posted stuff on Tumblr, some fan fiction that the Tumblr feminists did not like. Now there were and so the Tumblr feminists bullied this friend of mine until she was quite literally willing to commit suicide, and I had to talk her out of that. I was 17 at the time, I think, or 18, somewhere around that time. It was not. It wasn't a pleasant experience, but I was happy to say that she's still writing stories to this day. Although she still, I think, has post-traumatic stress from that time because she puts trigger warnings in the beginning of all of her fanfics because of that. And the worst part was the feminists that went after her did so because she wrote like a story that had she wrote like this story in which one of the main characters' backstory was that they were a child of rape, and they wrote and you'd think that feminists would be okay with that because the rapist dad is like the most stereotypical knuckle dragging misogynist. And the single mom is this proud, brave single mother struggling to raise her child, but the feminists were like, no, the mother should have aborted the child, aborted the main character. That was what they were upset about, and that kind of the sort of this is the thing about progressives, I think, that some people on the right miss. I mean, you see this all the time. Progressives have this idea that everybody on their side, anybody who has their political opinions, is like a moral exemplar, or at the very least should be treated charitably, while people who are on the right are all bad faith actors. They're all secret Nazi, bigot, homophobes. That's actually one of the most infuriating things about being called a racist, because they're basically saying you don't actually hold that position because you come to it through rational consideration. No, you hold that position because you just have an irrational hatred of black people. You just happen to not like black people or gays for no reason. There's no, it's just there's no reason for why you're a right winger. You have to actually experience the left being acting maliciously like that in a way that you can't excuse, in a way that's inexcusable, before the scales fall from your eyes and you're willing to actually even consider, because it doesn't change you right away either. It just makes you more open-minded to the other side. You still have to you still have to be convinced. You still have to be convinced into being a right winger after that. And what first got me interested in right wing ideas was a book by edited by John Smirak, called that I got right before I entered college. It's called Disorientation. That's the title, Disorientation, and it consists of 13 essays written by 13 different Catholic writers, and each of them deals with like a philosophical or political error that is promoted in college. There was like one essay on anti-Catholicism. There was one essay on multiculturalism written by Robert Spencer. There was an essay on relativism written by Peter Kreeft. It was all the good stuff. It covered everything: feminism, Marxism, consumerism, any sentimentalism is one of them, scientism. All of these errors were laid out right in front of me right before I entered college, which in hindsight probably helped me a lot. Because the book actually let me see the errors that were in my teachers. And at this point, I was actually entirely apolitical. I had mostly abandoned any kind of progressive stuff, but I was just apolitical. I was concerned with making good, getting into college and getting through college as quickly as possible, and watching Markiplier videos and anime. That was my priority back then. But then the third thing, and you'll probably laugh at this, but I was the thing that turned me into like the alt-light. It was more alt-light, but alt-right kind of person was Paul Joseph Watson in the 2016 election. His coverage of 2016. Paul Joseph Watson, of all people, appeared in my video feed, and and I started watching him, and then I was introduced to the anti-SJW YouTubers like Amazing Atheist. I watched him. V Monroe. I watched him. Sargon of Akkad. I watched him. I also watched I watched Crouten T was one of my favorites. Back when he actually was sensible. I watched Spinosaurus Kin before he went SJW. I watched and I also watched Edgy Sphinx and Naked Ape. By the way, do any of you remember Edgy Sphinx and Naked Ape? I mean, Naked Ape fell off the face of the planet, and Edgy Sphinx became Raving Ruin, and then he also fell off the edge of the planet. He still hangs around Discord from time to time, but man, he's not anywhere now, unfortunately, because he had all of these people had good videos to me. I liked being and I liked these people, and I considered myself alt-right at the time, and but really, back in 2016, alt-right meant Milo Yiannopoulos, so I wasn't really alt-right. I was alt-light, and then I got I got blue-pilled by Crouten T and Spinosaurus Kin when they did that hit piece on Edgy Sphinx. I know it's fake now, but back then I completely fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. And so I became a blue-pilled libertarian, and just watched Ben Shapiro every day, and Tom Woods, and just like boring libertarian man is just, and sometime during that time I adopted the William F. Buckley Jr. The kind of avatar, and started calling myself the Ghost of Buckley, and and I started doing this, and I started just going out on Twitter, arguing with people randomly. Didn't really have a direction. And then I think it was 2017, I met a few people. I met a few people. The Distributist, Fritz Imperial, and Benjamin McLean. Those were the three that really got me onto the path to where I was now, because they really introduced me to the idea of the culture war in a real way. Especially Distributist, because he was no offense to Fritz and Ben. Both of them were pretty good while they still made content, but Distributist was more in depth. You know, he had the depth that the other two lacked, and his content got better as it went on, whereas the other two kind of he kind of just dropped off. But I became friends with all three of them, and or at least as close as friends as you can get online. And starting with the summer of 2017, I also met a few other people. I formed a friendship with Todd Lewis. He's probably now my best online friend. Ben, King of the Mormons. Yes. Yeah, King of the Mormons. Although he's not actually a Mormon. He's like a radical conservative branch of the the reorganized Church of Latter-day Saints, which are different from the Mormons, because it's like his group is like a friend, is like a break off of the Mormons, and that is so it's so fringe in Mormonism that it loops right around to basically being Protestant Christianity, but with the Book of Mormon added to it. You know, that is Ben McLean's religion, as far as I could tell. And he does have there is a good interview on Benedict the 17th's channel that where Ben McLean explains his religion in more depth, but that's what I got from the gist of it. So super Mormons, more like Protestants that decided that the Book of Mormon was good and Sola Scriptura was bunk, you know. But anyway, so I watched those three, and I also started watching Todd Lewis, and he really helped. Todd Lewis was the one who really red pilled me the most. He opened me up to he convinced me to become a more consistent social conservative. He got me to really think deeply about my faith with some of the theological stuff, that the theological debates that he had with me, both online and both on a live stream and on Discord. And then I also got involved with a group called the Escaping Atheism group, which was run by a person who now goes by Max Maria, or Max Kolbe. He doesn't like using his real name because you know he personally hates his old name. But I really he was the other, as much as he's mocked on the internet, I really took a shine to that old man. You know, he was like a third. He was like a third dad, a grandpa. You know, he was like, oh, you kids with the. He was funny, and he was kind of curmudgeon-y, and he had that kind of wisdom that you don't get from reading books. He has that gut instinct about politics that you can't really get from reading books. And so he just kind of he convinced me to becoming a very militant anti-atheist. You know, he was the one. He also introduced me to a lot of the men's rights stuff. You know, introduced me to the concept of female hypergamy. You know, I was already anti-feminist at that point, but he really showed me just how wrong feminism is, and how wrong feminism is about everything. And that was it. And it was through those two, Todd Lewis and Max Maria Kolbe, that really got me towards a more paleo-conservative position versus my earlier libertarianism. And I also started reconsidering a lot of the alt-right stuff. And, you know, I also and I also had a very private falling out with Crout and T and Spinosaurus Kin. You know, it was I was friends with them on Twitter for most of 2017. I even had like a Skype calls with I even had Skype calls with with David Sherratt, and he came across as a very nice guy. He was kind of we had similar personalities in a lot of ways, and we kind of gelled with each other, you know, as fellow autists. But you know that was, but then you know, but then he started acting really weird. First, it was like the where he pulled a prank on all of on all of his followers, where he pretended to be doxxed, and then he said, "Ha ha, tricked you. Serves you right for trusting me." Uh, and then that alienated him from pretty much everybody who was on his side. And except for me, of course, because you know I wanted to see that I knew from talking to him that he was just being stupid. You know, he was just he made a stupid mistake. He had to go away he had to go on hiatus for a while, and then he came back, and then he started working with Kraut and T, and then he started bragging about how to me in Twitter DMs about how he had Braving Ruins docs. And I was like, no, that is just wrong. You either come clean with that information to Braving Ruin, or you tell him myself. And you know, and I was so mad at him. Just oh my gosh, I haven't really been able to trust leftists since then. You know, it's like some of these I mean they seem such nice people, and I have a personality that can gel with them, but then they do things like that, and it's just like, oh, I can't stand that. I cannot stand that sort of thing. They had this, and so the Kraut server fiasco went on. You know, academics, please respond. Still like that meme, even though it's so old. I mean, Kraut and T is no longer relevant. All alternative Spinus David Sherratt hasn't made a video for I think 9 months. If he's probably because he's having home trouble right now. But you know, it's so I started once I got over those things, I started really taking seriously what I wanted to do online, and that leads me to where I am now. I start after plenty of research. I'm here now, and I've decided that you know what needs to be done is I need to start making content that will kind of propel me into these spaces so that I can start networking with people, start bringing together these disparate groups of right wingers, and hopefully I can, hopefully I can really get them to work together. I'll go, of course, getting a bunch of right wingers to work together is like herding cats and dogs. You know, it's like herding a bunch of cats, because all of these people have their share of egos, and all of these people have their share of egos, and they'll pick fights with each other over the most stupid things possible because of rumors that were started, and they can't get their head straight on. They seem to think that chasing e-fame is the end-all be-all, rather than just a means to an end. The e-fame is not supposed to go to your head and turn you into just another e-celeb. It's supposed to help you do things in the world. You're supposed to use your platform to bring people together and promote interesting ideas. Those are the two main things that a content creator on YouTube should do. If you're on YouTube and you're not working to and you're trying to be a content creator, if you're not one, networking with other YouTube content creators, and two, put it you're not you're trying to use your e-fame to promote actually interesting ideas, then you're just in it for the drama. You're just in it for the drama. Okay. And that's my thing. Sorry, it was kind of long-winded. I have that problem, you know. If I don't have a script to work by, I will just start rambling about the most tangential things. So Doctor says, I was thinking of starting a channel to try and get my ideas out. Well, I can suggest to you what I was suggested. Get Resolve, like Blackmagic Resolve and Audacity. Blackmagic Resolve will be your video maker, and Audacity will let you record stuff on your for your voice. To record your voice. You know, that is what you need to do. That's night. That is those are the two things. Second of all, you need to find your niche. You know, once you have your equipment, once you have a good mic, and once you have a good mic and you have the programs, you need to think about what your niche is going to be. What are people into that? What are people into that isn't being talked about? You know, what ideas do you have that aren't being talked about? What is a niche that you're going to do? Like, I hope that I become the first in a bunch of reactionary YouTubers. You know how you had like the anti-SJW crowd, and it started with like Sargon, Thunderfoot, and TJ, and then all these, along with the amazing Atheist is Unstoppable, and it just kind of went woo, woo, and now there's all these these anti-SJW channels. They're all a dime a dozen. They all have the same talking points. I want to start that, but for right-wingers reacting to BreadTube. You know, I want to start the trend of saying the ideas that are on BreadTube right now are just largely unchallenged, and they're big, and that's mostly because BreadTube videos are painful to listen to. Basically, some of them are. I mean, some of them have interesting ideas, but they're all based on straw man of the opponents, so they're not going to. They can't really get off the ground. Like, you can be a left winger and have interesting ideas on YouTube, but you can't be like someone who constantly strawmans and puts on puppet shows in which right wingers are villains straight out of Captain Planet and expect to be anything other than mediocre. I wanted to talk about monarchism, trad Christianity. Well, you gotta, yeah. If once I start responding to BreadTube, hopefully that will create an avalanche that will cause other people to start making reaction video channels to BreadTube, and that will be like and I want the trad. I want the kind of paleoconservative reactionary a response video to become a stereotype, because once it becomes like the stereotype, that was when you know that it's entered into the popular discourse, and then at that stage you go to the next step, which is community building. But that you start getting these people together and you start coming up with all the good ideas. And I think the main advantage we have over the left in this regard is that the right wing can afford to be a broad tent movement. The left, it has its diversity, quote unquote. It has these groups that have different. It has these groups with all these different opinions on the left. Like there's the left liberals and the communists and etc. But they're all basically just copying each other's points, and they're all basically trying to reinforce the establishment narrative. So but I don't think the right wing will make that mistake. I think the right wing if we create a broad enough tent, we could have like red pilled MRA types and trad cats and sort of the kind of ethno nationalist post alt-right types. They're all coming together and they're all making in content and communicating with each other and forming a very pro-Western vision. And hopefully out of that we can create something more positive, because I think what caused the alt-right to fall apart was their failure to create anything positive, and that was mainly due to in large part, the incompetence of their leadership. I think if we are able to get better at leaders, better ideas than white ethno states in space, then we're going to be able to get to something conclusive. And you're Skellington. Oh God, not trad cats. Yeah, I do have problem. I understand. I may be a Catholic and I may identify as somewhat traditionalist, but no, I do not. I understand completely where you're coming from on the trad cats question. Because the trad cats, they can be obnoxious at times. They can be a little bit smug. Talking to the right can get along better because the right wing is it's kind of all over the place, which is why which is kind of why like purity spiraling is such a problem on the right. Partly it's because it's so broad tent. It's so diverse that there's a need to kind of weed out the people who deviate, so that you could just have some kind of coherency. But once you start weeding out people like that, it's kind of hard to stop because you have a momentum building. It's that is something I see. But hopefully, so I'm coming up on time. Hopefully you guys had fun. I know I did. I know I had fun talking to 3 people. Root out the libertarians. Yes, Skellington. Not all libertarians are bad, but I like to let's separate the paleo libertarians from all the other types of libertarians. Basically, let's separate them out, because the paleo libertarians, they might be on the whole question of government, but at least they have the right priorities. All right, so let's wrap this up. This was a weird first episode, just me rambling. I'm going to have to change the title and the description because Right Ruminations was just AFK today, unfortunately. Hopefully, he'll be around for a later episode. And in that episode, I'll be able to test my interviewing skills. I can I'll actually put his channel and a link to a playlist in which he discusses the idea that I wanted to discuss in the description. This is Mr. Mr. Geocon on the Geoconservative Files, signing out. Thank you all for watching, all four of you.